a brief introduction to Vue. What we will not be going over, we will not be going over how to set up a new Vue project. It takes a while, not a long time. If you know how to use the Vue CLI or the Vue UI tools, then it's easy breezy. But if you don't know how to do that, if you don't know how to manage npm packages, then there's a little bit of learning there. We're not going to do that tonight. We also will not be going over the differences between different versions of Vue. There's Vue 1, there's Vue 2, and Vue 3 that are out in the wild at the moment. We're not going to go over any Vue 2. We're going to go straight into Vue 3 because that's what the new hotness is, and we're just going to ignore Vue 2. So what will we be trying to go over? We're going to go over taking input from the user, passing data down to a component and back up to the parent, the basic structure of a Vue file, the life cycle, reactivity, calling methods from a template, and one thing that I forgot to include in here is we're going to take a brief look at the Vue router. Very brief. So that's what we're going to be going over tonight. So let's start out by looking at the structure of a very simple Vue app. This is it. We have our node modules. We have our public section. We have our source that has our router, our components, our assets, our views, which are pages, an app, which is kind of a wrapper, and our main.js that pulls it all together. So you can see all we have in here is we create app from Vue, we get app from Vue, we get the router, and I'm importing Bootstrap just so that we have a little bit of CSS stuff happening without any fuss, because this is a brief tutorial. So let's first look at the structure of a Vue file, and we'll do that by creating a new one. So we're going to create tonight we're going to be creating a contact page to go with our app. Actually, let's make sure that our environment is up. Yarn serve. So Vue comes with a little server, a node server. So here we are, we've got it at localhost 8080. So if we go here, there's home and about, but we want to add a contact page. So to add a contact page, we're going to do a couple of things. First, we're going to go to our router, which has an index.js. This is our router. Very simple. And all we need is a path, a name, and the component that it's going to be pointing to. So we're going to go ahead and copy this, paste it. We're making a contact page. So /contact seems to make sense. We'll call it contact. And we're going to get views/contact. Save that. And we're going to get a nice little error in the front end because we're not done yet. It says it can't resolve that component. Well, of course not. We haven't created it yet. So we're going to go ahead to this contact page and we need to rename this contact.view. Save. And now no more errors. Let's make sure that we have a way to get here. So on our app, we're going to go ahead and make another router link. Router link to /contact. Oh, we forgot an equal sign. There we go. And now we have a contact link. We click on that. We have a nice empty page. Fantastic. Because that's what we have there. So we'll go over what are the parts of a Vue app. Well, first of all, you've got the template section. There's 3 sections to a Vue file. There's a template, there's a script, and there's a styles. And we'll say this is just CSS. and it's going to tell me there's some errors. We're going to get some linting problems tonight because the linter is always angry. Just is. Don't ask me why it's always angry, but it always is. All right. What are we saying? New line required. There you go. Happy now? Cool. So we've still got our page open. These are our parts. Let's go ahead and give ourselves a hello world. What is it telling us? It's angry about tabs. Hello world. There's our page. So that's the structure. We have a template, a script, and a style. Now, let's talk a little bit about the life cycle of a Vue app. You might know from things like React that there are different states. You can start things on creation or on destroy or at these different phases of the application. Now, Vue has all of these, and if we go to their documentation, say Vue states, and we'll look for state management. Here we go. We've got some different states. We've got mounted. We've got all these different times to trigger things. But the main one that we are going to look up is setup. Setup happens when this application starts. And that is the one that you're going to use 90% of the time. So, you know, there is setup. There's on mount. Let's see if I can get some of these other ones. The composition API has them all. Okay, here we go. Setup takes care of before create and created. So if you need to call an API or something like that, you can do it in setup. If you need to do it when the app starts, you can do it in setup. They've also got ones before mount, mounted, before update, updated, before mount. Even these ones, you can actually call them. Let's see if it gives us an example here. You can call on mounted inside of the setup function, and that works just fine. So just remember with Vue, it's not like React. It's just do everything in setup. Setup. Boom. State. All done. We don't have to worry about it. All right. Style. This is where you put any CSS that you want to do. And this CSS that you do is just available to this component. So if you have any styling that just needs for this component, let's say that we want to make this, let's wrap this in an H1. And we'll say make red. Color red. Boy, this is going to drive me crazy. There we go. Not sure why it's doing that to me, but hey, my editor hates me. It's okay. We'll say class equals make red. Save that. We'll go over to our view, and there you go. All the styling happening inside of this particular component, not available anywhere else. We can hide it right here. Cool. So let's also talk about reactivity. Let's say that in our setup function that we want to make a constant called message, and we want it to equal nothing. We'll start it out as nothing. We need to use that up here. We'll take the place of hello world. Message. But you can see that it's still not being used. It's still angry. It says declared but never used. Well, that's because we got to return it up to the DOM or the template section here. So we got message right there. So now if we look, we don't have anything because our message is nothing. So let's go ahead and we will make it hello world. Cool. It's back to hello world. But this doesn't really show us the reactivity. If we want some reactivity, let's go ahead and import a certain function from Vue. And this one is going to be called ref. So whenever you want to make something reactive, there are two main ones that you're going to use. You're either going to use ref or you're going to use reactive. Ref is the one that you want to use whenever you're using a very simple parameter like a string or a number. If you want to do something more complex like an object or an array, then you want to use reactive. So let's just real quick, we'll make a little input and we're going to bind this to the message. Vue Model equals message. Okay. And now we've got a little input and it says hello world. We've also got our hello world right there. So when we delete it, there we go. We've got reactivity. And this is a good chance to talk about what is Vue Model. Vue Model is a two-way binding between whatever you put in here. So this message will update whenever you update the Vue Model. Fantastic. Even if you update it here, anything that you do with it in the setup function, they're going to have that value that you've put there. But we don't want to actually have hello world be reactive. So let's get rid of that. We're going to take Vue ref away or else it'll be angry with us. And we're going to get rid of this input because I want to show you how to use a component. So let's make a component and we're going to say that on the contact page, of course, we want to actually have contact made, right? So let's make a component. We're going to put it here in the components folder because that just makes sense. And we'll say contact form.vue. And once again, what are our three sections for a Vue file? We have a template, a script, and a style. And you don't actually have to have a div in the middle in Vue 3 like I'm doing here, but the linter doesn't realize that, and so it's being goofy. All right. So we have our template here. Let's go ahead and give it a, what are you getting angry with me for? Give it an input, and we're going to give it a label. We'll say email. And actually, let's go ahead and wrap this div. We're going to make this a row. And remember, we have bootstrap, so it should be fine. Oh yeah, we haven't brought it in anywhere yet, so we're not going to be able to see it yet. But let's go ahead and do another div call. And we'll grab this and throw it in there. And give that some space. All right. Now here's our component. We have an input field with a labeled section called email, but we can't actually see it. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to go back to our component page, which is our parent. This is the parent element. And we need to import it. So we're going to go up here right above the export and we're going to say import and we'll say form. We can call this anything that we like, but I'm going to call it form from, and we're going to go up to the components directory and get the contact form. Then we need to initialize it by grabbing components and putting the name of this form in here. All right, so that's made that happy, but this says it's been registered but not used. So let's go ahead and use it. I'm going to say form. Now there's a couple of different ways you can write this. This is the current one that's being shown in some of their documentation, but you can also write this as form with an escape, more like normal HTML. So just depends what you like, but you can do that. So we register our component. let's do one other thing that isn't really part of this tutorial, but it's always nice to give our different components a name. So we'll call this contact page. And it's not only just nice, but it helps you when you're doing development to be able to tell what you're working on. So let's give this one a name as well. Name contact form component. Cool. So we've imported it, we've initialized it, and we have called it. So let's see. Hey, there we go. We've got an email, but it's not really doing anything yet. Now, what can we do? There's a few things that I still need to tell you about. One is I need to tell you about props. Props are the ways that our component accepts things down into it. So let's say that we want some sort of title or something over this contact form. Let's make that a prop. So we go to our child component, contact form, and up at the top, above everything else, we're going to say title. And down here in our export default, we will say props. And we'll say that we want a type. Well, we'll say title. And we'll say it's an object. Well, it's not an object. We're just going to tell it that the type is a string, because we're expecting you to pass us a string. We are also saying that the default for this type, or for this prop, is going to be contact form. All right, and we've still got a little squiggle there because we're missing a comma. There we go. We've refreshed the page now. There we go. There's the contact form right there. Did we not save this? There we go. Okay, we got the contact form. But let's say that we decide later that we want to pass something from the parent to this form. For whatever reason, we can say title equals, and we'll just say it's called form. I don't know why, but it is. Now you can see it has changed to form. So props are the way that you can pass information down into the component. Well, let's say for some strange reason that whenever we submit this email, so let's just make a button here called submit. Let's say that anytime we press this submit button, that we want to send that email up to the parent component for some strange, odd reason. And let's put this outside of the row so it doesn't look so ridiculous. All right, there we go. Well, I don't know why we would want to do that, but let's do a few things here. First, we need to bind what's happening in this input so that we can keep that value. So we're going to go ahead and say setup const email equals, and we need ref. So let's go ahead and import ref because we need a two-way binding. Import ref from Vue. And once again, we need to return this into the template. So we say email, and we're going to make it a two-way binding. So we need a Vue Model equals email. Cool. So now when we type something in here, just to see that we have that reactivity, we'll put this here just so that you can see that our Vue Model's working. dan@place.com. Cool. So when we do dan@place.com, when we click submit, I want to send it back up into the parent. So how do we do that? Well, we call it emitting. So we need to, just the same way we have a prop section, we need to have an emits section. And this one's going to be an array. And we're going to call this email. Why not? And we're going to say anytime we click the submit button, we're going to use an event. And this event is going to be click. @click is how we can write. We can write it a couple ways in Vue. @click is one way. You can use vbind click. but I just like at. It's nice and short. And whenever we click this, we're going to emit, which you can do by $emit. We're going to emit the email event. And when we emit that email event, we want to send something up to the parent. And the thing that we want to send is the email. Okay. So now when we go back to the parent, this little component, when we type at, we're actually going to see there's our event that we just created. And whenever we do that, let's say that we want to do a function. So we'll say function on emitted email. Whenever that is emitted, we're going to take the event and we're going to do an alert. We're going to alert with the email. We need to pass that up into our template so we can use it. Oh, it's not email, it's event. We want to emit the event. I messed that up because the thing that the event will emit is the email. So let's say on emitted email. All right. So when we go ahead and type this in, dan@email.com, and we click submit, it'll fire off that emit, and it should come up to our parent and pop up an alert, which it does. Okay, so we've looked at props for passing data down, emits for passing it back up, refs for simple reactivity. Once again, we didn't really go over it, but you can do the same thing with, well, let's go over it. We'll go to the contact form, and let's say that instead of email being a simple, let's say that we want to pass a couple of things. Let's say we've got an email and a text area for the message. So we'll say Vue Model equals, we're going to change this a little bit. So instead of taking a ref, we're going to say reactive. And we're going to say data, reactive. And this data is going to be an email. So we have an email and we have a message, and it'll be empty as well. All right. So now we'll go ahead and vbind. Instead of it just being email, we'll say data.email. And for this one, we'll say data.message. Okay. And when so it's reactive, so it's binding these values in a reactive object. We're passing it. And instead of emitting email, we're going to emit data. And we'll should get back an object. I know this is super ugly, but it should work for our purposes. Daniel@email.com and a message. And when we submit, we get an object here. Of course, we can't really use an object in this way with an alert, but you get the point. We've passed our object with its multiple values up into the template using reactive. All right, so we've done reactive, we've gone over Vue models, and we've even called a method from the template using @email. And we could even do this emit. We could call an let's just do that. We can also, let's say data emit. We can make a function called function data emit. And we can call this emit email data. And we need to return that up into the template so that we can use it. And now we should have all the same thing @email.com. Put something there, submit. I think I've got a typo here. So what I need to do is there's a new thing in Vue 3 called context. This is the old Vue 2 syntax, and that's why I often get it confused. But you can say context emit instead. And we'll say at email.com and some message. We click submit. What am I doing wrong? We need to pass the props as well. Props, context. There we go. All right, so in setup, you can pass the props down into it, and you can pass the context as well. And that's the new way of doing that emit if you're doing it inside of a function. But so we've gone over reactivity, we've gone over Vue models, we have we've created functions that you can use. We've done basically everything that you would need to do in order to make a very simple Vue application. And this can actually get you pretty far. There's a lot you can do just knowing this little bit. So I hope you found that helpful. I hope that inspired you to use Vue sometime in the future because it really is a really cool framework. It's kind of like React, but with everything included. So I hope you liked it. Have a great time.